Serving your country is often a family tradition passed proudly from one generation to the next.
When I was a little girl, my daddy talked to me about when he served in World War II and the Korean War. He didn't say a whole lot about the horrors of it. He had scrapbooks that I looked at, but the stories that he told me filled me with pride.
I come from a long line of veterans, starting with my mother's uncles, and my mother, my father, my uncle was in the Vietnam War. My mother was always trying to remind me that there were opportunities through the military for travel, for education. I came away with feeling a sense of honor, a sense of patriotism.
My father served during World War II. My wife was a Navy nurse during the Vietnam War. I have two sons who are currently serving on active duty, both of whom saw duty in Iraq.
This is a very important spot for my family. My grandfather, who's with us today, my father, and myself, we all graduated from this recruit depot. So since 1940, Westovers have come through here. When I'm here, I feel like I'm at some special place. It feels like home in a strange sense.
I never tried to influence either my son or my grandson to join the Marine Corps. I wanted them to see it and to make up their own mind and decide whether they wanted to accept the responsibility of that kind of a life for themselves. I saw action in Bougainville, Guam, Iwo Jima, and Pearl Harbor, and the landing at Incheon, Korea, and the capture of Seoul, Korea.
Once we started going in there and the North Koreans coming down all over the place, and we had to confront them hand to hand at times. It was very scary, very scary. And anybody that says that he's not afraid or scared is lying.
We were surrounded by battalions of Viet Cong and NVA, and the battle lasted roughly 27 days. There was a lot of death, a lot of death.
Today, at the beginning of the 21st century, the face of warfare has changed.
We are fighting a new war, a war against terror, and it's the men and women in uniform who are being called upon to stand between the terrorist and American soil.
I'm laying down in the dirt and I'm looking straight into Dave's face, and the Iraqi walks up behind me and he hits me in the back of the head with a rifle and knocks me unconscious.
During the invasion of Iraq in 2003, Ron Young's helicopter was shot down over Karbala. Iraqi militia captured him and his co-pilot, Dave Williams.
When I come back to, I'm looking at Dave and the guy has a knife to Dave's throat and he's threatening to cut Dave's head off.
The pilots were held for 3 weeks before being rescued.
As these guys were dragging us through the streets, finally we ended up in Samara, and a set of Marines decided that if there was a chance we were there, they were going to come try to rescue us, and you know, we owe our lives to a lot of brave Marines.
I've been back for 9 days today, I believe. Feels wonderful, and yet at the same time it feels weird. Like I feel like I should be going back there. It's great to see all my friends, but I miss the ones that I made over there.
Each year at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, we honor and show our appreciation for the millions of brave and selfless Americans, living and dead, who have stood for this country in war and peace. Our veterans.
Well, November 11th is just one day, but that one day we should say thank you for a mile away life. Thank you for America.
It is probably one of the things that I'm most proud of in my entire life, having the courage to go over there and fight for my country. I was one of the people that raised my hand and took the oath and said that if people have to go and people have to die, that I'll be one that's willing to do it.
Veterans Day is just not a day off. It's not a holiday from school. It's remembering those who led the way to protect our country so that we have our rights and our freedoms.
My mom and dad were both hard workers, and my father was my hero in my life, as well as he is still today. He went to work in a cotton mill at the age of 11 years old and supported his family. And I saw the movie The Frogmen with Richard Whitmire about the Navy frogmen in Korea. And I was a good swimmer. I love the water. I love water. I've been around the water all my life. And I said, well, I got to join a thing. I want to join the Navy, and I want to be a frogman. And I knew that right off the bat.
South Carolina native Michael Thornton enlisted in the Navy after high school. He went through underwater demolition recruit training, and out of a class of 129 was one of 12 chosen to become a member of the elite Navy SEALs. On October 31st, 1972, with the war winding down and few American troops left on the ground, Thornton was sent in with 4 other SEALs on a night mission. They were to gather information on the North Vietnamese and their inexorable advance to the south.
Tommy Norris was the senior SEAL on the ground. Myself and Tommy and 3 Vietnamese SEALs, 2 which I had picked. I handpicked them on 2 different tours I'd been to Vietnam. Both these guys had worked for me, and they sent a young Vietnamese SEAL officer with us. And what they were going to do, they were going to take 2 Navy destroyers, and these guys are setting off the shoreline when they shoot what they call a vector with the radar. Later on, we found out the ship to the south of us shot the vector almost 2 degrees to the north. So when this went like this, he went to the north. They put us almost into North Vietnam. So we slipped into this boat, paddled so close through the water, then we slipped into the water, then we swam the rest of the way into the shore. So there we are patrolling all through. Tommy's on point. We got the 3 Vietnamese in the middle, and I'm at rear security. And we're walking through areas that had been no way in hell they could have built all this stuff up in 2 months. So then, right then, we knew we were way north. So we're heading back out to the east. To our south, we could see this village, heard dogs barking and stuff like that. We looked off to our left, and there was a big, gigantic lagoon to the north of us. So we wanted to get as far as away as we could from the village, so we moved down the beach. Even though we were going north and we knew we were going in the wrong direction, we thought we'd move down that way. So we went through about 4 sets of sand dunes, and we came to this one gigantic sand dune which stood by itself. Tommy got on the radio. Well, Quan comes crawling up and says, Mike, and he goes like this and points out this way, means he sees 2 enemy. So I took Ty and I gave him a hush puppy, which is a silenced .22 weapon, and I moved him down about 200 yards, 150 yards from where I was, and put him in this inside dune. And I told him, when I take this guy out here, I want you to sneak up behind this guy and eliminate him. So the guy comes through the sand dunes. I'm like this. He comes through. I take the butt of my weapon, and I've got the other guy in the corner of my eye. I could see he was way ahead of us, and I just knocked this guy cold and dragged him up the beach. Then Quan came down and grabbed him and turned him around, and he handcuffed him. And I started crawling down the sand dune line, and I was going like this to Ty to sneak behind the guy and shoot the guy. Ty stood up and yelled, "La de Malin," in Vietnamese, which stop, come here. This guy's got an AK-47. He underslings his rifle and starts shooting at Ty. Ty jumps back behind the dune. I get up, I take a long shot and miss. And he started running because he saw me running after him. So I'm hauling Can, and he goes up into the trail, up into the woods in the jungle, heading towards that village. And he beat me 2 there, and I got there, and he's running down the trail, and I stopped on one knee, took 2 breaths, and cranked off 2 rounds. I hit him in the back, and the guy fell. But when I looked up, there was a quick reaction force coming with the village with about 50 guys. So I turned around, started running back. Tommy sees me running back. He took one of these laws and opened it up, and he shot it in the tree line. He wasn't trying to hit any of the bad guys. He just wanted to hit a tree to get a large explosion. And it did hit a tree, and it exploded. These guys got down because they didn't know what they were coming against. Well, I'm on the point, and these guys were coming in, and they were leapfrogging. One group would come this way, and they were in 3 different groups. One was trying to flank us, and what I'd do, these guys would stick their head up. So when they tried to come in a vast thing, I was knocking them down pretty fast. This firefight lasted for several hours. And I'd known that we had killed probably over 30 of these guys, basically, and these guys made one last blast. Well, they had moved up to the sand dune. They had got me kind of pinpointed to one sand dune. I couldn't get, well, they had guys shooting it each way, and Tommy was trying to take some fire down this way, and I was on this sand dune. Well, they threw this Chi-Com grenade over. So I rolled over, the grenade went off, and I was hit like 6 times in my back. And I yelled and said nothing else, and you could hear Tommy yelling, "Mike, Mike." So I laid on my back like this, and about 4 guys came over the top of this sand dune, and I shot all 4 of them. 2 fell down, one of them fell on top of me. The one fell down, the other 2 fell backwards. And I figured that time we had already wiped out more than, I'd say, 2/3 of their group. And they didn't try to advance anymore. So I looked across this lagoon, counted 75 bad guys coming this way, and I looked and there's that many going this way. I looked down the beach and I only see Dang come back by himself. I said, "Dang, where's Tommy? Where's Dawee?" And he says, "Mike, Dawee's dead." I said, "What?" "Dawee's dead." I said, "Are you sure?" And I could see these guys overtaking the position and stuff like that. And I said, "You guys stay here." And I said, "I'll go back for Tommy." I went back across the open fire, and they were firing at me, and these and my 2 other guys were giving me cover fire, and I was shooting guys. I got to the position where Tommy was last at, and he was laid on the side of the sand dune, and 5 guys were overtaking him, and I killed those 5 guys, and I grabbed Tommy and put him on my shoulders, and then I heard this coming in.
Just as Thornton was making his way back, the ships arrived and began firing at the enemy.
The concussion blew me almost 20 feet in the air, and I had Tommy, he was on my shoulders, and his body flew off my shoulders and hit the ground. And I got up, and of course, this concussion. Of course, when I heard another 8-inch coming in, and I said, "Oh, God." It got those guys' attention real fast, so they all fell back, you know, and I went over and saw Tommy and picked him up, and he said, "Mike, buddy." The son of a gun was still alive. Didn't have enough time to do any type of first aid, so I grabbed him, picked him back up. These guys saw me running again. Several guys started running around on the ocean side. They were just hauling. I turned around, I fired at them. I looked back, and my 2 boys were still there, Dang and Quan. Quan and Dang had used all their ammunition. They started swimming. I said, "Swim, swim." They started swimming, and I was using the last of my ammunition. And I got to the surf zone, and I grabbed Tommy, and I put Tommy in front of me like this. I started swimming like this, and these guys were chasing us, and they were shooting, and as we swam through the surf zone, you could see the bullets just going through the water just like you do in the movie. Well, I look over to my right, and there's a little Dang over flaunting in the water. You know, he was shot through his right hip and blew off his whole cheek of his butt, and he couldn't swim, so I grabbed him, put him in front of me, and I had him wrap his arms around me like this. I had my arms underneath his arms, and he held on to Tommy, and I started this breaststroke, and I swam for approximately 3.5 hours.
Thornton towed his comrades seaward for hours until they were eventually spotted and brought aboard an American ship.
Tommy got back to Da Nang. They took him to Clark's Air Force Base, and his first operation was 19.5 hours long. And we still said he wasn't going to make it. And that was on October the 31st, 1972. I'd found out I'd been put in for the medal. They said the only time it was really questioned was in front of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And he said, "How can a guy do all this and still be alive?" And the Chief of Naval Operations, "You tell me how a dead man does it, and I'll answer your question, General." And that was it. It was signed and gone through it. So I went back on October the 15th to receive the medal. I try to tell these kids of how many great sacrifices that people have had to give you the freedom to be able to do what you're doing today. How many great men and women have lost their lives to honor us. But I think everybody has to sacrifice for something great, you know. Nothing's given to you, you have to work for it. And I received my medal actually going back in to rescue Tommy. And I mean, we have a love for each other greater than brothers. You know, it's just, you know, until you die together almost and understand what living's all about. And then I look at life a lot different than everybody else. And a lot of other people, because I live every day to my fullest, and which we all do in our own little way, you know.